Welcome to the Sparkbird Podcast. I'm Jenn Lodi-Smith.
And I'm Janet McNally.
On every episode of the Sparkbird Podcast, we share a story of how someone discovered their passion for birds. These stories set the stage for conversations about the place of story in our lives, the benefits of birding, and the barriers and opportunities for our birding community. Each story comes from the Sparkbird Project, an ongoing community science initiative designed to gather, share, and study the stories of people's passions for birds.
Every episode is recorded at Canisius University in Buffalo, New York, and developed in partnership with the Roger Tory Peterson Institute in Jamestown, New York, home to the archives of Peterson, whose own childhood sparkbird experience with a northern flicker sparked not just his career, but a revolution in the democratization of birding with the creation of the Modern Field Guide over 90 years ago. Hello, everybody. We are really happy to welcome Paul Groleau today with us. Paul, can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So again, my name's Paul Groleau. I'm president of Feather Friendly Technologies, Inc. We are a bird collision mitigation company celebrating 20 years in business this June, with projects in over 48 countries and counting, with some very high profile ones, in particular McCormick Place in Chicago, which has received a lot of media attention over the years. We're just very grateful to sort of be in this space because it's sort of near and dear to our hearts. Yes, we need to sell product to keep lights on and people employed, but that's not our first mandate. Is, well, we trademarked it, treat glass, save birds. That is the idea. We want glass treated, so we're saving birds. And recent studies have been over 1 billion birds are killed per year just in the USA alone. And we know this is a global problem, as there's documented strikes in over 90 countries affecting over 2,000 species of birds.
Absolutely. It's so incredibly important. And it's one of the things that we're really trying to work on here in our little patch at our university and our city. And I know a lot of folks are. Before I let myself get distracted by such an important issue, though, Paul, can you please share your Sparkbird story with our listeners?
I certainly can. Okay, so I was the kid who was always bringing home stray cat, young squirrels. I had the best of intentions, but not, now I know these things, these animals should have gone to rehabbers right away, etc. So I was always a nature guy. I was always an outdoors guy. I collected frogs, snakes, and everything. So to get to the Sparkbird, I spent a lot of my youth up north in North Toronto in Utterson, Ontario. My grandparents had built a retirement home there. So I spent a fair amount of my youth there, as far as I'd go up with my dad. We'd go over the weekends, or I'd stay up there for a few extra days. So the Sparkbird was an owl. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you what species of owl, because at that age, it was an owl.
Yeah.
But the scenario is that I was cross-country skiing on a snowmobile path, and I want to say it was dusk, and I was going along, and it was so quiet up there because it's very much in nature, and my sound effects will be very bad, but all I heard was looking down the path, and it was because it was tree lined and it was this snowmobile path, it was sort of confined, and this owl was coming at me, and I sort of froze because I was sort of taking it all in, but sort of gobsmacked that this owl's coming at me. And I'll never forget, and I ducked, not that I needed to duck, but I sort of did this duck as I was looking up, as watching this fly over me. And I hightailed it back to my grandparents' house, busted in the door, and was sharing with my grandmother. I just saw an owl, it came at me, and she was so enthralled because she loved all the nature up there. That really got me interested. And I'll never forget, because from that, I remember doing a school project on owls. So I'm guessing that must have been during a winter break. And then back in January, I was doing this owl, essay or presentation. And I think animals, birds, all of that have inspired my life. And what's sort of a cool thing for me is that I went into the corporate world working for a large international sporting goods company, spent 18 years doing that, slightly burned out from that, and then was able to come full circle and be a part of this, which this isn't a job for me. It's a passion.
Yeah.
So that Sparkbird has had a massive impact on me and where I'm at in my career.
That's so incredible. What a special moment. How old were you?
I'm guessing I was maybe 8 or
8 or
9,
9.
something of
That's
that
incredible.
age, you know. And it's funny when we're talking about it, I can go right back in my memory bank and basically put myself on that trail
Oh, yeah.
with that owl coming at me. And at that age, that looked like it had a 12-foot wingspan and was massive, right? So that's not something that's easily forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. This really sticks with you. I remember Joe Trezza, the writer who did the BWD magazine article about Sparkbird Project. He said something along the lines of, I don't remember my Sparkbird like it was yesterday. I remember it better than yesterday. Like that vividness of the
Yes.
quality in the story that you're sharing is really part of what's so compelling and so defining about these memories when we look at sort of the larger context of self-defining memories in narrative identity research. That's really cool. I love also that your immediate response was to run home or ski really fast home
Yes.
and share this with other people. I think that desire to share special moments in the natural world in general and birds in particular is such a core part of so many people's experiences of nature that I'm having this incredible moment and I immediately want to share it with other people. And that's really, really special. And I love that in your story.
It was neat for me too, because my grandmother fostered that. So did my grandfather, but my grandmother in particular. I'd catch frogs, snakes. Now, she didn't like snakes. She didn't want me to bring those back. But we actually saw our first ever moose up there. And that was her first time seeing a moose up there. And she was head over heels, like excited and gushing about it. So having that reinforcement of someone being interested in wildlife and nature and everything, I think fostered that in me as well.
I think it's really cool that you were close enough and it was quiet enough to hear the wing beats, especially because it was an owl and they're like very quiet, right? Because they
Exactly.
don't need to be sneaky. So like we don't hear a lot of people with their Sparkbird stories, at least on the podcast. Like when they talk about sound, it's usually like the call of a bird. It's not
Right.
like the wing beats of a bird. So that seems so interesting and so gentle. That I find it really cool that then you grew up to want to like keep birds safe. Like there's this like light touch to this that my
Yes.
brain is making a connection there that I
Ooh,
think
I
is
like
really
that.
lovely. Yeah.
No, and again, as I said, I'm so grateful to be in this position because again, it's come full circle.
Yeah.
Because I always cared about wildlife so much, all species, and then to be working in this space, this isn't something I take for granted. It's again, grateful and humbled to be a part of this.
Paul, how did that come about? So Feather Friendly's been around for 20 years. How long have you been
Yes.
with Feather Friendly? What's your journey from that little 8-year-old you to now being the leader of this company that makes such a tremendous difference around the world?
It's an interesting story, and I'll try not to be too long-winded because I do have the gift of gab. I started set up a company that I was doing consulting on product development and brand management and all that sort of stuff. And our owner, George, who's involved in the window film industry, reached out to me totally blind on LinkedIn. We were not connected. To this day, we do not know how he found me.
Interesting.
He asked me to come in and we had a meeting, probably an hour or two. And I'll be honest with you, at the end of that meeting, I was driving away going, I'm not really too sure what George is asking of me. And George is he's a mentor of mine. He's a father figure as well. I lost my dad a few years ago, and George he's a salt of the earth kind of person. And we just talked. We talked about family. We talked about obviously work history, but it was very organic, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he asked me to come back in again about a week later. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, he says, listen, he says, I'd like you to come in and run this company. And I was like, whoa. Because I had my consulting business that I'd been doing for a few years. I was doing okay at it. And I said, can I have a day or two to think about it? He says, by all means. And I remember going home, and I'm a list guy. I was doing my pros and cons. There was no cons. And the idea of being able to, again, come full circle to be a part of, hopefully being a part of change.
Yeah.
And of making a difference really excited me. So I've been at this for 9 years. I was the first, even though we've been doing this for 20 years, I was really the first full-time feather-friendly employee. Fast forward 9 years, I've got 14 employees, and we do all our manufacturing here at our head office and then distribution worldwide. So I've always said George has this uncanny, I think he's got a crystal ball at home or something, because he's like being able to sort of make decisions at the right time. And it's so funny because him and we are always on the exact same page with how we want to do, how we want this business to continue to grow, how we want to make a change. And that's a big thing for us. We want to be a part of that change.
Well, and you absolutely have been. So 9 years, there's been a lot of change, a lot of conversation, a lot of growth in our understanding, whether we think of it from, academic papers published and the realization of that even those publications were underestimates of the collision loss that we have just in the US alone, as you were pointing out some of those numbers, to where we are now, and the practical change and just the overall awareness, I think, of the public in general. What has that been like to be able to see that emergence of knowledge in different sectors happening live as, boots on the ground, and really one of the organizations that's leading our public awareness and understanding?
It's so exciting, but I always share, it takes a village. There are a lot of people who've been doing this a heck of a lot longer than us that have paved the way. So McCormick Place is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Dave Willard from the Chicago Field Museum had been monitoring McCormick Place for over 43 years. I know, because I saw it firsthand and Dave shared with me, is that a lot of the collection at the Chicago Field Museum actually came from that building.
Yeah.
And there's people like Annette Prince with Chicago Bird Collision Monitors, that these people have been the advocates pounding the pavement in these areas, raising awareness. I'll be honest with you, if it isn't for organizations like that, we would probably not be a company.
Right.
Yeah.
And, we got a lot of fanfare with McCormick Place,
right,
because we were the solution. But I was standing on the shoulders of a lot of people.
Paul, for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar, I think a lot of us in the bird community, we're like, oh yeah, McCormick, like absolutely, but maybe some of our listeners don't necessarily come from that space. Can you tell that story of how that space, the importance of that space for humans and for birds, and the loss and the tremendous changes that have been able to happen there?
So McCormick Place is a trade show facility in Chicago. It's right on the water. They actually call it the Lakeside Building. So Chicago lies in a major migratory bird path. Birds tend to migrate on various paths, but water's life. So they tend to follow water because there's an opportunity for water, there's an opportunity for food, there's an opportunity for rest. That building, the biggest issue on that building was reflection. So, and on our website, we do have some of those pictures that you can get an idea of what a bird is seeing and think about it without the markers applied. It is full reflection of the lake, of the green space that's around there. And we do know that, again, that's the largest data set building in the world for collisions. And they had a mass strike in fall migration 2023, where over 900 birds were killed in one morning, with, I believe it was like another 300 or 400 that went to local rehabbers.
Yeah.
So it was a very strange phenomenon, and it was based on weather. It was based on right in prime migration and reflection. And it was just an awful scenario. Within a few hours, I'd actually seen pictures of it, and it was just, it was heartbreaking. Yeah. And from that, and kudos to McCormick Place, they got a little bit of a bad rap. They had not addressed it for many, many years when it was called out. But on this, they acted on it almost immediately. And a lot of people don't know sort of the background to it. They engaged with us almost immediately. I wasn't allowed to be public facing on it because it's not fair to them, and it's private between us. We started working with them, other organizations like American Bird Conservancy, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, the other advocacy groups, and they wanted to make sure that they were doing the right thing. It was a large investment. And it's interesting too, because outside of this bird safe space, I think some people are like, well, does that really work? Or is this like snake oil? Like, no, it is, we are tested and approved. We've got that 20-year history. The American Bird Conservancy does the testing and approving, as well as Dr. Daniel Clem. So they were a little bit like, well, will this work? Won't it work? Everything. They are absolutely amazed of the results. So once it was treated, the fall migration numbers now, and this is even previous years, based over previous years, the reduction in strikes were over 95%.
That's so amazing.
Spring migration was 94%. And this fall migration was about another 95%. And Dave Willard actually made a joke, and I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but he said that would probably be the last year he would be monitoring that building based on the massive change.
That's amazing. That is so, so incredible. We often hear about these large buildings, where these mass casualties happen.
Yes.
But we also know that those are happening on our windows in our residential homes. We had an amazing student, shout out to Alex Sedere, who was a Canisius grad and honors student. Janet directs our honors program a few years back. They wrote I think it won a big award in the honors program, if I remember correctly. They wrote their thesis on window strikes and did some really amazing data estimation based on some scholarly data. And they estimated that we lose 700,000 to over 2 million birds annually in Western New York alone from residential collisions alone. And so that is not the big places. That is not, and that number is staggering. And that is just here in Western New York. What can homeowners do, right? These strategies are not just for these big commercial buildings, right?
Exactly.
You sell to folks like my mom, who just moved into a house and discovered feathers stuck to a large window when she moved into the house. What can folks like my mom do to take care of their homes?
So to that point, large commercial buildings get the focus because they're public. People are walking over dead birds, or this gets added to the media. So they are a concern, but the biggest concern is low rise and residential, exactly like you just said. And it's based on the sheer volume of them. I've done presentations where, I'll go into a room of 150 people. Who's had a bird collision? Everyone's hand goes up.
Yep.
More than 3, they start going down. More than 5. By the time I hit more than 8, everyone's hands are down. Okay, take that number in your head, multiply it times 10, and that's more realistic of what you're getting.
Yep.
The reason being is pre-COVID, we were away from our homes between 8 and 12 hours a day. You can have a bird strike. It can be stunned. It'll fly away to local vegetation. Unfortunately, the mass majority of them die a painful death in the next 24 to 48 hours. The other aspect is they can be, if they're killed, they're scavenged right away. So During COVID, our residential business blew up because everyone was at
Sure.
home.
They were noticing.
So to deal with that sort of thing, we actually have what we term DIY products, do-it-yourself products, that, we've got, a small 1/4 inch wide product where you're laying one row down at a time. That's good for a window, a patio door. Then we do Pro DIY 6-inch, Pro DIY 18-inch, depending on the size of your project. These products are sort of like a one and done. They can be applied. You're not going to have to worry about it again. Regular cleaning is not an issue. On our DIY, we talk about it like the 1/4 inch DIY lasting 8 years. We've got homes in Toronto that are like 12, 14 years.
That's awesome.
So, and it's not much of an investment. Well, I guess that's relative from where I'm coming from, based on the durability and longevity.
Yeah.
So that's something that every homeowner can look at doing, and relatively easy to do. And if we all do our part for the environment and biodiversity, it's amazing what an impact it can make.
Can you explain exactly what the product is? Because I think some of our listeners might not know,
Yes.
and that would be nice to hear. Yeah.
So think of it as a large transfer sheet or a transfer idea. Only the dots remain on the glass, and that's done for durability and longevity. So our DIY, and I apologize, I don't have any right here, but you would just lay down a row and then you remove the carrier tape and just the dot sticks. Then you've got the 6-inch, you're doing it in a larger format where you're laying down 5 rows of markers at a time. And then you take off the carrier material and just the dots are left. Again, regular cleaning is not an issue. It's all pre-spaced based on scientific standards. 2x2 spacing is the absolute best. That you'll have a 95% reduction in stripes. Someone applies it. If you apply it, Janet, on your window today, right there,
Yeah.
you're going to come into that room and go, oh, there's the dots. You give it 2 weeks time and you don't notice it.
Yeah.
So there's actually a phenomenon between your eyes and your brain. Our nose is always in our line of sight.
We don't see our noses. It's amazing.
You don't see it. Now you're gonna see it all day now that I mentioned it.
Yeah.
But it's your eyes and your brain, I guess, adjust for it. It's like a screen on a window. You don't look at the screen, you look through it or past it. It's the same with the markers. Like I've got glass here in my office, some tall glass looking out into our some green area and some parking. And the markers are actually the same color front and back, white. However, on the inside looking out, they appear much darker. And the reason being is it's backlit,
Right.
as well as you're looking at that dot through 4 surfaces of glass. So it appears darker. So when I'm looking out, it actually blends into the building across the way. Some of the greenery we have here, it blends into it. So you're not looking at it. You're looking past it. We do a ton of zoos, like the viewing windows. It doesn't obscure photography. Again, we've heard countless times over the years. I was worried that I wouldn't adjust to it.
Yeah.
And we, through our social medias, there's countless people who talk about, we don't even notice it anymore. And it's fantastic because we don't have any bird strikes. Because if anyone's ever experienced that thud,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking and you will never forget it.
No, I think that's true.
So we've talked about huge places like McCormick. We've talked about our like almost Doug Ptolemy like residential, like bringing it into our native plants and what we can do in our
Yes.
specific homes and our residences. Can you talk a little bit about those spaces in between, whether it's a neighborhood organization that tries to create that change, whether it's local ordinance, whether it's, a place like our university, a smaller business that is trying to help that change happen? Do you have a specific story or example of a group that worked to make a difference in their community?
I certainly do. And legislation is key. It is hard to get put in. And a lot of times that legislation throughout North America in the various municipalities is based on new construction. So there's a lot of existing buildings that need to be treated, whether residences, low rise, or high, or like commercial. So I'll give you a perfect example of an incredible organization we work with called Bird Safe Philly. They're based in the Philly area, and they have done tremendous work about education, outreach. We've actually partnered with them a few times to sponsor. So we believe in giving back. So we've sponsored where we've donated material and they've had volunteer groups do the install, or we've given extremely special pricing in order for a project to happen. Now, the incredible thing with Bird Safe Philly, they were just awarded a grant that, if I'm not mistaken, was about $240,000 over 3 years. And their idea is to mitigate glass. And what we're doing with them is we've created a whole program in conjunction with them that they're able to go out and get a lot of glass treated. And there's countless organizations like that, like the various Audubon chapters that we work with. You know, there's FLAP here in Toronto. There's Ottawa Safe Wings. There's, again, all kinds of US-based organizations that we've worked with. Birds Georgia. These are groups that go out and they educate, they bring awareness. So we know, and we've got a tagline in our boardroom that says education, conservation, proven solution. And it's about the conversation. There's a lot of people that don't really know that there's a solution, or they may not realize it's as big an issue as it is.
Right.
We really try and work with these groups. We get them education packs. So when they're doing a community event, they can have samples, they have a display, they have brochures. We really want to support that end of things, because I'm not boots in the ground in Philly or in New York. And so we count on like-minded people. So we want to show that support, and we want to foster those conversations as much as possible. And again, we're sort of humbled we're a part of it, and that people trust us that much and want to work with us. And we just wanted that to continue.
So many conversations that we've had on the podcast and in stories that we've collected in programs over the years really focus on that. I had that initial spark. I fell in love with birds, and then I was sparked in learning through X, Y, and Z about the need for conservation, the need for bird safety, to create that in my community. And we do have some stories where people were sparked by finding a window strike bird, but we, hopefully we can spark people and then they can learn before they have that experience. And it sounds like y'all are really doing the work, and certainly in our communities there to help people learn before they have that moment.
I find in this space, you can find like-minded people. And Jen,
Absolutely.
our sort of interaction in Chicago, it was a conversation, and it was like, hey, we need to talk more.
Absolutely.
And it was so cool because it was organic. It was about the love of wildlife, of birds. How can we continue the conversation and look at where we are today?
Yeah. Shout out to the Urban Birding Festival in Chicago.
Yes.
Great. Talk about great people doing great work, and to care for our birds and our communities and ourselves and each other. Just really, really amazing.
Well, with the state of the world right now, it's pretty incredible that we've got people who care so much about our planet, about our wildlife, about birds. And it's not just, they're cute. They play such a massive role in biodiversity. And, people talk about, if we lose bees, we will eventually die. It's the same with birds. They're cross-pollinators.
Absolutely.
They're seed spreaders. So they're such an integral part of biodiversity.
Right.
But I get so excited when we meet like-minded people that we can continue the conversation, because that's what all this is about, is let's keep talking.
Paul, what's in the future for Feather Friendly? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to for your own journey with birds and for the future of your company?
Well, we are constantly growing, which I'm so excited about. We've amalgamated with Bird Divert, a UV solution in the US, where we are now the exclusive. We're doing all the sales, marketing, consultation worldwide. We're opening up some distribution and partnerships in Japan, in Mexico, in the UK, in the Netherlands. We've got some super exciting projects this year. We're doing a military museum in the Netherlands. I'm hoping, if everyone could cross their fingers, a big project in Barcelona, Spain. It's about 33,000 square feet. Yeah, I've told everyone I need to go and visit that one.
Yeah.
I've been to Barcelona once, and if I can get an excuse to go back, I'm there. We're doing a massive 96,000 square foot project here in Toronto, starting the end of April. So there's that, but there's also all the education opportunities. I always claim I have a face for radio. So I don't like doing necessarily, I'm still trying to gain that confidence about like speaking engagements, but I'm being asked to be a part of them more and more about sort of our journey, about, the issue and about the solutions available. And that's really cool for me because I never saw that coming. But I think building a team here who is absolutely incredible. We all have our job titles, and that's forward facing. Interior wise, we are all on the same playing field. We all add to the team and to the success of this company. It's not me, it's a group. And again, it takes a village.
So for our listeners at home, really important, we'll be releasing this episode, will be coming out right at the beginning of peak migration season, at least here in our area. April 15th is really when it kicks off here in Western New York. For listeners further south, you're going to be wanting to really be on top of your window treatments throughout the spring migration season through May. But even in the summertime, even sometimes in the wintertime, our residential birds will make a mistake and find our glass. So you would really want to get that treatment up all year long. But the migration season is peak, and bring that in combination with all of the other good things that we need to do to take care of our birds, such as turning off our lights and keeping our cats indoors, planting native, drinking bird-friendly coffee, and getting bird-friendly maple syrup and chocolate, and not using pesticides and rodenticides. All of those great behaviors. Taking care of our windows is really one of the most straightforward and easy things that we can do to make that difference.
It's so incredible that just one or two things can have such an impact. And I think, I've heard this before from people on maybe not necessarily attached to bird collisions, but well, if I do this, is it really going to make a change? Is it really going to have an impact? The thing is if you get a few people to do it, then a few more people do it, then it spreads like wildfire. It can have a massive impact.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for being with us today, Paul. For our listeners, can you share where they can find out more about you, where they can find out about Feather Friendly, maybe a little bit more about the new video podcast that y'all are launching?
Yes. Yeah. So, we've launched Bird Banter, which Jenn was a part of, our first one, which was pretty incredible. More info about us, featherfriendly.com. We have an info email address. You can send an email directly and you can put attention Paul, and I'll answer your questions. We've got a team of people. We're very accessible. We pride ourselves on that. We have people all the time contact us. Hey, these are my measurements of my glass. What should we do? We have no problem answering those questions, directing people. We have an online store. You can purchase products through Wild Birds Unlimited throughout North America. We also have other partners. We're here to assist. Any questions? There's no such thing as a silly question. I didn't know a lot of this, 10 plus years ago. I've learned a lot and still learning.
It's one of the great things about birds. They're always teaching.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us
thank
today,
you
Paul.
for being with us.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Greatly appreciate it.
Take a moment and head over to our website to share your feedback on the podcast. Let us know where you're from, where you heard about the podcast, the episodes that you like, your favorite moments in the episodes, and suggestions for who you might want to hear on future episodes of the podcast. Anything we can improve, anything else you want to share with us. We hope to hear from you. Take care of your windows, take care of your birds, enjoy the migration season, and happy birding.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Sparkbird Podcast.
A reminder that every story shared on the podcast is part of the Sparkbird Project, an ongoing community science initiative designed to gather, share, and study the stories of people's passion for birds. Research findings go directly back to community partners to inform their efforts towards inclusively sparking and sustaining birders. Share your story and participate in our community science effort at www.spark-bird.org today.
Many thanks to our producer, Kayla Gajewski, for the recording and editing support of the Sparkbird Podcast, Genevieve Fontana for the Sparkbird logo, Hustalonia for our theme music, and the Roger Tory Peterson Institute for their support of the podcast. We'll see you next time.